anyone is joining us via phone, just *6 will unmute you. So, and we'll get into that afterwards anyway. So I'm going to start the recording now, and I'm going to open the meeting, and then I'm going to hand it right over to Dave because we're in for a real treat tonight. So I'm glad you're all here, and away we go. Welcome to our Living the 12 weekly gathering. My name is Karen. I'm an alcoholic and a lot of things. We meet here on Zoom Tuesday nights from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our group focuses on sharing our experiences with living our lives on a spiritual basis through studying, practicing, and applying the 12 steps as they are outlined in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. We have used the Big Book Awakening Guide for direction, as we find it to be a thorough and effective way to have a life-changing experience with the Big Book and to help others experience precisely how we have recovered. So I'm going to share a set-aside prayer that I feel is appropriate for where we're at and where Dave is going to share tonight. And to let everyone know that we have used the Big Book Awakening Guide, but all are welcome to share who have 12-step experience. So this is an all-inclusive, not exclusive group. So, God, please enable us to set aside everything we think we know for an open mind and a new experience. Help us to see the truth of our need to continue as we trudge this road to a happy destiny. And so it is. Okay, so we have a treat with Dave Fredrickson tonight, so I'm going to hand it over to Dave. You're on.
Thank you, Karen. Can you hear me? Is this volume well?
Perfect.
Okay, perfect. Good evening, everybody. My name is Dave Fredrickson. I am an alcoholic, and I'm also an Al-Anon and a whole bunch of other things. Tonight, I'm really grateful that you gave me an opportunity to share with you guys. Steps 10 and 11 is, if there was one thing that I could teach, it would be 10 and 11. It's the one area that I've found that is life-changing, and it's what I like to call advanced sobriety. I teach it to guys when they first come in the rooms. When I first start working with a drunk, the very first thing I do is I get him working on his prayer and meditation life, because, as it says on 85, we're granted a daily reprieve based on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. So I get him started on that concept of prayer and meditation as I start to qualify him and take him through the work. I like to say that, probably 95% of the people in recovery pray. Maybe 5% meditate. And I would say it's less than 0.1% understand what vision is about. And for those of you that are don't know my background or anything, I've been sober since December 5th, 1981, and I've been all over the world teaching the 12 steps, doing workshops and big book stuff. The GSO reached out to me and had me go to Russia to teach the 12 traditions, 12 concepts, 6 warranties. So my background is pretty deep when it comes to recovery. And so if you hear me make statements that are where I'm speaking from a position of authority, it's because I have a tremendous amount of experience. I've taken, literally, no exaggeration, thousands of men through the 12 steps. And so I've had the blessing, God's given me a front row seat to see people go through this process, and I get to see and learn from their mistakes and as well as my own. And when I was about, just over 10 years sober, I had gotten away from what I had been taught, prayer and meditation. I wasn't doing anything, and I got really dry and really sick. And I got to the point where I almost blew my head off because I was in that bad of a shape. And when I got back into the practices, I had this profound spiritual experience, and I realized that my relapse began the moment I stopped praying and meditating. And most people like to think of the relapse beginning when you pick up the drink. Well, that's actually the end of the relapse. The beginning of the relapse is when I separate from myself from the only source of power that's going to keep me sober. Step one, we're powerless over alcohol or whatever your 12-step issue is. The only thing that can keep me from that is a relationship with a power greater than myself. And Bill Wilson was a master at it when he wrote the big book. in the big book, they're always together, prayer, meditation, and vision. And I know a lot of people, I hear this all the time. They're like, I heard a prayer, I know about meditation, but what's this vision thing? And when I first got sober in the early 80s, they talked a lot about vision. My sponsor was always talking about vision. And to me, it's the key to long-term sobriety. Before I jump into the big book, I wanted to cover a couple reasons why it's so important, why I feel so strongly about this, and it comes right directly from Bill Wilson. It's in step 10, he talks in the big book. In step 10, he gives us a couple prayers. And then he gives us a couple more in step 11. And then the last prayer, there's actually 12 daily prayers that we're supposed to be doing every single day. And some people have never heard that, but it's right there in the book if you look at it. And I'll teach those to you tonight. But Bill Wilson, in 1955, wrote the 12 and 12. And on page 17 of the 12 and 12, it says the whole purpose for the 12 and 12 is to broaden and deepen what's in the big book. And it's rare for me to go to the 12 and 12, but there's actually some really good stuff that Bill Wilson added when he wrote the 12 and 12. And if you look on 88, it starts out on step 11. At step 10, Bill Wilson starts out with, as we work the first 9 steps, we prepare ourselves for the adventure of a new life. That's the whole goal. It's not to quit drinking. When we come to Alcoholics Anonymous, at least when I came here for a drinking problem. I was here to figure out how to stop drinking, but that's not the purpose. We're preparing ourselves for a new life. It's a way of life. AA is not something I do, it's something I live. Right? But when we approach step 10, we commence to put our AA way of living into practical use day by day in fair weather or foul. Then comes the acid test. Can we keep sober, keep an emotional balance, and live to good purpose under all conditions? Did he really mean all conditions? I believe he did. It's proven to me. I've had some pretty nasty things occur in my life, and while I was going through them, if I hadn't been doing 10 and 11, I'm quite sure that I would have gotten drunk in that process. And Bill Wilson goes on. He talks about how self-seeking has to become a regular habit. He says, no one can make much of life until self-searching becomes a regular habit, until he's able to admit and accept what he finds, and until he patiently and persistently tries to correct what is wrong. Well, if I'm powerless, how do I correct what I'm wrong? The way I correct it is by seeking a relationship with God and handing this particular issue over to God. My problem is the analogy I like to use is I'm an archer, and I got a quiver, and where I keep my arrows. And we talk about tapes when you always react a certain way. That we always say that that's just the tape that I have. Well, I like to think of that as an arrow. If I only have one arrow in my quiver, I'm going to pull that one arrow out and shoot it every single time because that's all I have. The whole purpose of the prayer and meditation is to give me a second arrow. I still might react the way I always used to react, but now I have a chance because I've created this new arrow with a vision of what it would be different if I could do it over again. I have the opportunity in the future of choosing a different way to react. And when I do that long enough, the new arrow becomes the old way, because my body is now used to using that, and I grow spiritually. And that's why I call it advanced AA. Bill Wilson was pretty amazing on some of the things that he covered. I'm going to jump forward to page 94, the first paragraph on page 94. Bill Wilson wrote, when prideful, angry, jealous, anxious, or fearful, I don't know about you, but I'm that way most days. Some of that crops up in my life. We acted accordingly, and that was that. Here we need only to recognize that we did act or think badly and try to visualize how we might have done better and resolve with God's help to carry these lessons over tomorrow, making, of course, any amends still neglected. That's the vision part. Bill Wilson talks about vision all over the place, over and over and over again. On 95, he talks about correcting. He says, learning daily to spot, admit, and correct these flaws is the essence of character building and good living. An honest regret for harms done, a genuine gratitude for blessings received, and a willingness to try for better things tomorrow will be the permanent assets that we shall seek. He's telling me that how important it is for me to have a good, effective 10 and 11. And it's funny, I run into people that relapse. and they say, well, I've been in the program for 10 years or 15 years or whatever. I can't seem to stay sober. I keep relapsing. And the very first thing I ask them is, tell me about your prayer and meditation life. And they'll tell me, and they'll say, oh yeah, I pray. And I'm like, well, do you meditate? And the response I almost always, 100% of the time I get back is, no, I can't meditate. I've tried and I just fail. And I'm like, well, then you haven't been working the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Because it says, sought through prayer and meditation. To me, that's non-negotiable. The problem is they've been trying to do what I call mushin, mind of no mind meditation, clearing your mind. I have yet to find an alcoholic who's really good at that, because we got the hamster on the wheel. We got a chatter of 1,000 monkeys going on in our heads all the time, So that's not the kind of meditation. There's so many different kinds of meditation. Bill Wilson taught guided meditation, and so that's what we're going to cover as we go through. We're going to be talking about guided meditation, and why? Because he starts out Step 11 on page 96 of the 12 and 12. Prayer and meditation is our principal means of conscious contact with God. If I can't have a conscious contact with God, I'm not connected to my source of power, ergo I'm not protected from my relapse. If I plug in the morning and then as soon as I plug in, I unplug and I go out and try to live life, I'm walking around unprotected. I'm wide open for a suddenly or a strange mental blank spot to show up. And Bill Wilson drives home the point even harder on page 98. He says there's a direct linkage amongst self-examination, meditation, and prayer. Taken separately, these principles can bring much relief and benefit. But when they are logically related and interwoven, the result is an unshakable foundation for life. That's what I've been searching for my whole life. I've always felt like I didn't fit in and I didn't know what was going on. But if you can figure out how to do prayer, meditation, and vision, it will be the bedrock upon which your sobriety, your emotional sobriety will stand. Now and then we may be granted a glimpse of that ultimate reality which is God's kingdom, and we will be comforted and assured that our own destiny in that realm will be secure for as long as we try, however faultingly, to find and do the will of our own Creator. That's the goal, is to seek God and do what we believe is His will. And that's a generic vision. And we'll focus in on more specific visions that Bill Wilson gives us. The last thing I wanted to cover is on page 101 of the 12 and 12. He says, it now ought to be followed by a look at where we stand now and a further look at what might happen in our lives were we able to move closer to the ideal that we've been trying to glimpse. Meditation is always something that can be further developed. And let's always remember that meditation is in reality intensely practical. One of its first fruits is emotional balance. The whole reason that I want to be doing meditation and not just prayer is because I want the emotional balance. And if you're like me, if I'm off the beam, my emotions, I can go from 0 to 60 in a nanosecond. I just skip right over anger and I go right to rage. There's nothing in between. So it's a direct marker for me if my prayer and meditation life is a unified thing, and I'm bringing God with me and not just throwing Him a bone in the morning, getting up and going through my prayers, check the box, I did my prayers, and walk out and do Dave's will all day. It always ends in disaster. But if I carry God with me and I have a vision for how I'm supposed to behave and how I'm supposed to react, it works out perfectly. And so why do we do this? We do it for the promises that He's given us. He says in the big book and in the 12 and 12, he says that one of the first fruits, is we're going to get a strength and wisdom and peace. He also says we're going to get a sense of belonging, which is something that I've always been searching for. So I talked about the big book and I talked about the 12 daily prayers. The way that I like to teach this is if you try to do all 12 daily prayers your first time through, they're overwhelming. I've yet to find somebody that can sit down. It'll take you 45 minutes to go through. You'll get really frustrated and tired because it's not going to make sense. And it's something that takes some time. It takes some experience. You have to work with it for a little while. So what I tell people to do is just take prayer number 1 and work with prayer number 1 for a week. At the end of the week, you should have prayer number 1 down. You should have all your visions for that. You should have that tool in your toolbox. And then on week number 2, you do prayer number 1 and prayer number 2. You add prayer number 2 in week 2. And then in week 3, you add in prayer number 3. And by 12 weeks, you've got all 12, and it fires. It goes very quickly. And the cool thing is, once you get a vision that's working, until you screw it up, until you misfire that arrow, you don't have to create a new vision. I've been using the same vision for my family members for months now. It's been phenomenal. And I don't know if you guys can see me, but predominantly most of my time I spend sitting in this office where I am right now at my desk when I'm at home. You know, I'm either outside doing a project and I don't have to worry about it because it's so hot in Texas where I live. My family will be inside in the air conditioning. I'll be outside sweating, doing work around the yard or whatever. And when I come home, I tend to retreat. I do my meditations, I do my prayers a lot of times in my office. And so I also spend time on my computer here. And if I'm doing that, I'm centrally focused on the computer screen, and there's a door right over here on this side. And that's where my wife comes in. And when she used to walk through and interrupt me in my office, I would turn. I called it the turret because it's like a cannon. I would spin the turret, and what would come out of my mouth as I looked would be, "What?" That's not patient, tolerant, kind, or loving. That was absolutely categorically the wrong thing to do. So if you look on the top of page 83, the very first paragraph, 83:1, it says, "So we clean house with the family." Asking, there's the prayer. When you're asking, you're praying to God. You're asking something from God. Asking each morning. How often? I get more people to say, "What are you talking about, these 12 daily prayers? Where do you get that from?" And I go, right out of the book. I don't know how you read it, but it says each morning. If it says each morning, I got to be doing this every single morning. And then it says in meditation. Okay, so there's the prayer, we got the meditation, that our Creator, it's a capital C, they're talking about God. Anytime there's a word that's capitalized in the middle of a sentence, they're talking about God. That our Creator show us the way. There's the vision. Prayer, meditation, and vision. All three pieces are right there together. That our Creator show us the way of patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love. So when I kept turning in the turret and blasting my wife when she'd walk into my office, because God forbid she interrupted whatever the most important thing in my life was that I was doing. I mean, it's ridiculous. She's my partner, she's my best friend, she's my wife. She should be able to interrupt me anytime. But I wasn't taking that attitude because I'm a selfish, self-centered alcoholic. So I had to think, I blasted her. So what would be the corrective measure? Well, when I think about this prayer and I'm meditating, and it's a guided meditation, right? What does it look like to be patient, tolerant, kind, and loving towards my wife? And what comes into my mind is when I wasn't patient, I wasn't tolerant, I wasn't kind, I wasn't loving, when I blasted her. So the question I asked myself is, were that to happen again right here, right now, what would be a better way to do it? And the meditation, that a vision that I came up with is, as I inhale, because I always inhale before I blast, what? So now, as I inhale, what pops into my mind is, yeah, honey, what can I do for you? It's literally that simple. It's patient, it's tolerant, it's kind, and it's loving. And then I turn my chair and I face her directly. So I can look at her, I can engage her in the eyes. And I even put a chair sitting right here next to my desk. I only need one chair in this office, but I put a second chair in here so that my wife can sit down and look at me eye to eye at the same elevation, so that we can talk to each other at the same elevation. So it's not a position of dominance or power. And then I'll reach out and I'll touch her on the knee. And I'll listen to what she has to say. It doesn't matter what it is. The other thing, I'm very judgmental. She'll be saying, well, I'm going to go up to TJ Maxx and go shopping. And I'm thinking to myself in my head, why do I care? Why are you bothering to interrupt me and to tell me? This is what goes through my head. But what comes out of my mouth is, oh, thank you, baby. Thank you so much for telling me. Because I have a different arrow in my quiver, because I've sat down and figured out how to react correctly with patience, tolerance, kindness, and love. I have a vision in my mind's eye to not do what my first reaction is to be sarcastic and condescending, because that's what my selfishness leads me to. Does that make sense for prayer number 1? Cool. All right. Prayer number 2 is on page 84. Right? And so, let me finish on 83. It says, our Creator show us the way of patience, tolerance, kindness, and love. The spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. There's a very important instruction, right? I can understand this stuff intellectually, but if I'm not practicing it, I'm not going to get better at it. My father-in-law, before he died, when he retired, became a birder. He'd go out with his binoculars and go looking at birds, and I was always amazed. He could pick out a bird at 1,000 yards, and he could tell you exactly what kind of bird it was. And I said, Dick, how do you do that? And his response was time in the field. You have to practice it. You have to get out and practice and practice and practice until you get better at it. And before you know it. And so I used to go out and hang out with him. And whenever I'd go visit him, we'd go out and we'd go birding. And by the time he passed away, I could do the exact same thing. I could see a hawk and be able to tell you what kind of hawk it was and whether it was a male or a female, and the exact same, because I spent many, many hours doing it. You're not going to get good at prayer, meditation, and vision unless you practice it. That's why it becomes a daily discipline. Right? So flip over to 84. Right? 84, the second full paragraph, it says, this thought brings us to step 10. What thought? The thought of the 9-step promises. We read them in most meetings, but nobody even thinks about them. Right? And what's the thought of the 9-step promises? That they will always materialize if we work for them. It's a conditional statement. So if I'm willing to work for the promises, they will come true. And that's the thought that leads me into step 10. According to the book, right? We continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. We vigorously commence this way of living. You notice it doesn't say it's an action, it's a way of life. As we cleaned up the past, we have entered the world of the Spirit. Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. So I have to understand how I get off the spiritual beam, and then I have to work at becoming more effective on a spiritual plane, to get rid of my inebriety, if you want to call it that, if there is such a word. Right? And then here comes the instruction. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When these crop up, Bill Wilson doesn't say if they crop up, he says when. They're going to crop up. If you're an alcoholic, these things are going to happen to you. When these crop up, here we go. We ask God. There's your prayer. At once to remove them. We discuss them with someone else immediately. We make amends quickly if we have harmed anybody. And then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Love and tolerance of others is our code. So, when I'm thinking about this, I ask God in the morning, my prayer and meditation, God, please help me to watch. What does it look like to watch? I need to get a vision of what it looks like to watch. Otherwise, I'll go blasting through my day and, I'll stop for coffee at, let's say, 10 o'clock, and I'll think back, and at 8 o'clock, I chewed somebody out on the phone because I wasn't watching. I wasn't engaged I wasn't bringing God with me. So my primary vision is, what does it look like to watch? And I make the statement, and it drives some people nuts, but it's true. I've spent over 25 years at least working with one word in the big book: watch. What does it look like? Because watching is a critical component. And I get better and better. I call it road signs. If I'm going through life and I can see certain things. One of the things that I've noticed that's a road sign for me is my chest. I get this tension in the top of my chest. Right? If I'm feeling that tension, it's a physical manifestation. I know something's wrong. I'm resentful. I'm afraid. Something's going on, and I'm about to get ready to act out because I can feel the tension in my chest. Same thing with the hair on the back of my neck. If the hair on the back of my neck stands up, that something's wrong. And I learned that by watching. If I square off my body to you, if I'm talking to you, most people, they're not talking square. When a man squares off with another person, that's a direct confrontation. When they lock eyes and they're squared off, man, that's right. It's time to fight. And if I catch myself squaring off to anybody, I know there's something wrong because now it's a manifestation. But how did I learn that? I learned it by watching my behavior and screwing up. And then I would do what I call a post-mortem. I go back and look at it and say, why didn't I see that coming? You know how you have a road sign that says there's a curve ahead and it tells you the speed? Well, I'd go crash right through the guardrail and I'd be smoking down in the gully. And then I'd say, okay, I just crashed. Why didn't I see the curve? What's going on? I worked my way backwards. And the further I work my way backwards, now I don't even look for the road signs. I look for the disconnect from God. Because I get up in the morning, I do my prayer and meditation, I know when I'm connected to God, all the promises come true. I have the peace and the patience and the kindness. My heart is filled with love when I'm truly connected. 5 minutes later, I leave my office after I've done my prayer and meditation, I can disconnect from God. And if I do that, I immediately want to go reconnect. If I'm watching, I can catch it. If I can't, then I'm liable to act out. If I do act out, then I go through this 4-step process here, right? I ask God at once to remove them. I discuss them with someone else immediately. I make amends quickly if I've harmed anyone, and I resolutely look for someone I can help, right? And I go back to being loving and tolerant, because that's our code, right? I've actually failed at this and had God use it for my benefit. Most people say that that 6 and 7 are trying to remove their character defects. That's not what 6 and 7 are about. If you look at the 7-step prayer, we're asking God to remove the character defects, and only the character defects that block us off from Him and those others that we can be helpful towards, right? One day I was in a 7-Eleven and I started chewing this woman out, because she was making change, and this old lady was in front handing out the change out of her purse, and I was busy. I had to go. I'm driving down the New Jersey Turnpike, and I realized I owe that woman an amend. So I hung a Yui, drove back to the 7-Eleven, and I'm in the process of going through this amend of, I admitted it to God, and who do I tell? I'm telling the woman. I said, I treated you horribly. I really regret that I treated you that poorly. And as I'm going through this process, she looks at me and she says, why are you doing this? Nobody ever comes back and says they're sorry. And I said, well, I'm in a 12-step fellowship. And she says, really, is that something like Alcoholics Anonymous? And I said, yeah. And she goes, hey, would you be willing to talk to my brother? He's got a drinking problem. God used my character defect to lead me into a 12-step call by doing that. So just a little side note, when we're watching, if we follow this process, you'll be amazed at some of the cool experiences you'll have. And when it says, we tell someone about it, right? We discuss it with someone else immediately. I've learned very often that I'll discuss it with the person that I just harmed. I'll just tell them right there. Say, you know what? I'm out of line. Forgive me. I never should have done that. And it catches them so far off guard that very often they'll start talking to you like, why would you do that? And those people don't do that. And you end up with some really cool spiritual experiences when you can do that kind of thing. So that's prayer number 2. Page 85, first paragraph on 85. Starts out, it's easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. We are headed for trouble if we do, for alcohol is a subtle foe. We are not cured of alcoholism. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. And here it goes again. People say, where do you get this? These are daily prayers. Every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will into all our activities. How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. So in this case, Bill Wilson even gives us the prayer. How can I best serve thee? Thy will not be done is the prayer. And the vision is the vision. What does it look like to do God's will for today? And the real question is, I'm supposed to carry this into all my activities. When I do this in the morning, I sit down and I don't do it as an evening review. I do my prayer meditation in the morning, the way Bill Wilson did it. And when I got to this morning, I had to sit down and think, how did I do yesterday? For me, it's hard to figure out a vision going forward if I don't have anything important on my desk of what it's supposed to do. Let's say I've got an important doctor's appointment, and that's on my docket for what I'm supposed to do that day. It's easy to get a vision. Well, I'm going to put on my spiritual armor. I'm going to go there. I'm going to be kind to the doctor. I'm going to be kind to the nurses, no matter what they say. I'm going to go through that process, even if I have to wait 45 minutes or an hour to get into the doctor. I can do that if there's something important. But today, I didn't have anything on my list. So what did I do? I started looking at yesterday and say, how did I do carrying God with me yesterday? And I thought about it, and there was a couple places, right around 11 o'clock yesterday, I got disconnected from God, and I didn't catch it. So my vision for today was to try to go all day long connected with God. And what would that look like? And I had to sit down and do a vision on that and think, what is it going to look like for me to stay connected to God? And what I had failed to do yesterday was I had failed in my spot checks. I wasn't doing the spot checks the way I normally do my spot checks. And so today, so far, I've been carrying God with me all day. I've been doing my spot checks. And it's been a much better day because of it. I hope that makes sense. So there's prayer number 3, right? Prayer number 4 is really the 12 questions. It comes on from page 85. Is where it starts. At the end of 85, it says, Step 11 suggests prayer and meditation. We shouldn't be shy in this matter of prayer. Better men than us are using it constantly. It works if we have the proper attitude and work at it. It would be easy to be vague in this matter. We believe we can make some definite value suggestions. If you look at the original multilith, it said, when Bill Wilson first wrote the Big Book, at this point in the multilith, it says, when you awake tomorrow morning, look back over the day before. The early Oxford groupers did something called checking. They would get together and they would do their prayer meditation and they would check each other. Well, I think God wants me to do such and such. And people would kind of say, well, yeah, that sounds reasonable. Like, if somebody said, I think God wants me to sell everything I own and move to Tibet, you'd probably have somebody that in their checking session that would say, maybe you want to pray on that a couple more days before you sell everything you own. Right? So I find it's really important for me to do this in the morning. I used to do it in the evening, but it didn't make sense because at the end it says, after making a review, we ask God's forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures should be taken. Right? On awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. Well, my 24 hours ahead is based off of these 12 questions. Right? So if I owe you an apology from yesterday, if I have to make an amend to you from what I did to you yesterday, I want to correct that today. If I'm all the way through the end of my day, and I get to the end of my day and I realize, geez, I owe Karen an amend, I'm getting ready to go to bed. The odds of me making it tomorrow morning are slim and none. But if I'm starting in the morning and I'm fresh and I've had a good night's sleep, and I look down and I go, what's my plan for the day? Well, I got to clean up the mess I made yesterday. There's a really high chance, because I'm going to get a vision of making that amend. I'm going to fit it in right here, and I make it a priority of correcting that discrepancy. I hope that makes sense. So when we constructively review our day, and for me, there's actually 11 instructions here. I split kind and loving into two, because I can be kind. I'm almost always kind. Very rarely am I not kind. But loving, I'll be nice to your face and I'll be saying, hey, how you doing? But in my mind, I might be thinking, you jerk. So I'm not loving in my mind, but I'm not about to say it out loud because that would make me look bad. And my ego doesn't want me to look bad. So this one question, I split into two, and besides it gives me 12 then, and I like the number 12. 12 steps, 12 traditions, 12 concepts, So, number 1, was I resentful? Number 2, was I selfish? Number 3, was I dishonest? Number 4, was I afraid? Number 5, do I owe an apology? Number 6, have I kept something to myself which should immediately discuss with another person at once? Number 7, was I kind towards all? Number 8, was I loving towards all? Number 9, what could I have done better? Number 10, was I thinking of myself most of the time? 11, was I thinking of what I could do for others? And 12, or was I thinking of what I could pack into the stream of life? Right? And then Bill Wilson gives us a caution. We must be careful not to drift into worry, remorse, or morbid reflection, for that would diminish our usefulness to others, because it's all about being useful to God and others. All right. After making my review, we ask God's forgiveness. There's the prayer piece, and inquire what corrective measures should be taken. There's the vision. So prayer, meditation, and vision, they're always together, right? So now I think, geez, you know what? I do owe an apology. Then I'm going to write out the amend, the process that I have to go through. If I was resentful, I'm going to write a short form 4-column inventory. I'm going to go through. I'm going to write a forgiveness prayer as part of that process, so that I no longer have the resentment. If I was kind but not loving, then I do a meditation on what can I do? How can I become more loving? If anybody's ever driven with me, you'll know I have a real hard time when I'm driving the car. Almost everybody that pulls out in front of me, you idiot, what are you doing? Get out of my way. That's what's going on constantly, and it's not very loving. And so when I've been particularly bad in this arena, one of the exercises I'll get a vision, and my vision is I will drive in the slow lane and I will drive the speed limit. I always drive at least 7 to 10 miles an hour over the speed limit everywhere, But when I'm doing the spiritual exercise of trying to be more loving, I pull into the slow lane, and it's kind of cool because it turns into a prayer and meditation session. While I'm driving, I'm obeying the law, and I'm just talking to God. Sometimes I'll put on spiritual music, but it forces me to leave a few minutes earlier. That's one of my character defects was I was always trying to leave. Well, it's going to take me 8 minutes, so I'll leave at 9 minutes before I need to be there. I wasn't giving myself any time, and that's why everybody's a jerk, because they're getting in the way and slowing the great Dave down. It's what my ego was trying to tell me. So I've changed that behavior. I'm still not good at it, but I'm practicing and I'm working on it, and I'm getting better and better and better by coming up with a vision. And it's the key is the vision. What does it look like? How do I create that new arrow for my quiver so I can act differently, right? The next one is also on 86. It's the next paragraph down. On awakening, we think about the 24 hours ahead. We consider our plans for the day. Before we begin, here we go. We ask God, there's the prayer, to direct our thinking, right? What does it look like? especially asking that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives, right? So prayer number 5, I go through that process. Prayer number 6 is on page 86 as well. Well, I'm asking God to divorce my thinking from self-pity, dishonest. There's two prayers. We ask God to direct our thinking, right? That's one separate prayer. I want God to direct my thinking. What does it look like? I also add in there, God, please direct my thinking. Keep my thought life divorced from self-pity, dishonest, self-seeking, and wrong motives. I kind of add them all together. I found it to be easier. I also ask God to bind my tongue from profanity and dishonesty. Because I used to have, well, sometimes I can still have a problem with profanity. And, and our normal, we're hardwired to be dishonest as addicts and alcoholics because that's our survival mechanism. We used it our entire life. So I ask it when I get to this prayer, right? Further on down the page, in thinking about our day, we may face indecision. We may not be able to determine which course to take. Here we ask God. Anytime I'm asking God, there's the prayer. For inspiration, an intuitive thought or decision. We relax and take it easy. We don't struggle. What does it look like, right? I know what I'm supposed to do is relax and take it easy, but I have to get a vision for an inspiration and an intuitive thought or decision. And so what I'll get in my mind's eye is, okay, when I'm going through my day and I'm not really sure what to do next, I have a vision in my mind's eye of finding a quiet place. I put my phone on silent and I sit down and I do a spot check. I sit down and say, okay, since the last time I prayed, God, how am I doing? And I do a body scan. I'm trying to figure out how I feel. It's funny. I'm strange that way. Alcoholics don't know how they feel. I've got this ridiculous magnet, which I keep on the side of my computer. And it's got all these different feelings: exhausted, confused, hysterical, happy. Because I really don't know how I feel most of the time. I'm going through life, unless I'm angry. That one I've got down cold. But I'll do a quick spot check and say, how am I doing? Am I feeling indecision? All I know is I don't know which course to take right now. What's the next thing on the list you want me to do? And sometimes a thought will pop into my head. I haven't seen Joe Blow at a meeting in 3 months. That's God telling me to pick up the phone and call Joe Blow. If I take that spot check, that little moment of time, and I'm open to it, he'll tell me how to do it. And we're supposed to relax and take it easy, because the second thought that pops into my head is, I don't have time to call Joe Blow. I want to be selfish right then. Bang. But it tells me to relax and take it easy. So I go get myself something to drink, I pick up the phone, and I call Joe Blow. And very often it'll turn into a 10 or 15 minute conversation, and he'll be like, oh, man, I'm so glad you called me. I haven't talked to you in a long time, but I've been off the beam. I haven't been talking to anybody. I haven't been going to meetings. That's the way it works in my life. Top of 87. 87.1 is the first full paragraph. We usually conclude the period of meditation with a prayer. There's the prayer. That we be shown, there's the vision, all through the day what our next step is to be. That we be given whatever we need to take care of such problems. In the original manuscript, it said of every situation. I like that reading much better when I put in every situation in there. We ask especially for freedom from self-will and are careful to make no requests for ourselves. Right? So there's my next prayer meditation vision. What does it look like for God to show me what my next step is to be in every stage? I think I know what because I'm arrogant, right? I think I know that the next thing I'm supposed to do is item number 3 on my list. When I finish something on my to-do list for the day, at least I try to stop and say, okay, God, thank you for helping me get that done, get a little gratitude in my life. And what does it look like for me to go on to step number 2? Is number 2 the next thing on the list? And sometimes item numbers like this today, I had this thing that my wife has wanted me to do for ages. I dug up some crabgrass in the lawn, and there was these bare spots, and she's wanted me to put seed down and put some dirt over the top of them so new grass would grow. And so I got done doing what I was supposed to do this morning, and that was way down on my list of things to do. And because I paused for a second, God said, go take care of that grass. Right? So I went and took care of the grass. It moved way up on the list because I bothered to stop and take a split second and say, okay, God, show me what I'm supposed to do next for the rest of the day. It can really have a profound effect on the way your day plays out. The only casualty will be is when I get done with my day, all the things that I thought I was going to get done today never get done. because I'm operating for God instead of Dave. You know, I keep this card on my desk right here. It says patience, tolerance, kindness, and love. Underneath it says, what I want doesn't matter. I don't get a vote because I work for God today. I have to constantly remind myself of that, because Dave's got a plan for his day. Dave wants to do what Dave wants to do. But if I bother to follow this and I say, God, please show me all through the day what my next step is to be, I'll be pausing all day long, you know. There's also that we haven't gotten to it yet, but there's this prayer, you know, that we should say several times each day, thy will not mine be done. For years, I had a hard time adding that in. But once I started doing this prayer and pausing before I took my next step, after one job was completed, before I started the next task for the day, that's when I add that prayer in. You know, thy will not mine be done. Whatever you got for me, God, I'm working for you today. If that makes sense. Right? We may ask for ourselves, however, if others will be helped. We are careful never to pray for our own selfish ends. You know? So, what does that look like? Right? And then it goes on. It says we sometimes select and memorize a few set prayers. Here's where I do the 3rd step prayer, the 7th step prayer. I'll sometimes say the prayers are from the 12 and 12. Sometimes, you know, any kind of a prayer. Sometimes I'll go through and the guys that I'm sponsoring, you know, I'll pray for their marriages here, or somebody's sick. Like right now, my buddy Rick, his mother's got tongue cancer, so I pray for Rick, and then his niece has got cancer, so I pray for her. This is what catches that for me, is right here, is when I'm doing these set prayers. Those are some set prayers that I'm going to say until I hear that they no longer have cancer, but I always add, whatever your will is, God. Because I don't want to specifically say, like my brother had cancer, and I used to pray this, and I'd say, God, whatever your will is, you know my heart, I want my brother to be cured. And God didn't answer that prayer. As far as my brother getting cured, he passed away. You know, but because I want God's will more than I want Dave's will, I was okay with that. And I realized I just lost the physical form of him. He's still with me all the time. I talk to him on a daily basis almost. But I digress. Last paragraph on page 87. As we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful, and we ask for the right thought or action. There's another prayer. Right? Top of 88. All right. Actually, that paragraph carries over. We are no longer running the show, humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, thy will be done. That's the hard one that I had a hard time adding in. But now when I stop and I ask before I do my next task, I'm able to add that one in. And why do we do that? Because we are then in much less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions. It's interesting that it starts off with excitement. I was an adrenaline junkie for years, even in sobriety. You know, excitement is dangerous for an alcoholic. You know, the whole purpose of this prayer and meditation life and carrying God with me through the day is to keep me from getting those spikes of anger, to keep me from getting excited, where I'm on a level, emotionally balanced keel. And so that's my vision, as I envision myself as a boat on a calm water. You know, I used to look for the heavy seas, and I'd go rushing out into the heavy seas, because every time I'd get a spike of anger and I'd get mad or upset, my brain got a dopamine dump, you know, a little adrenaline injection, and it became like an addiction. You know, I was angry and agitated all day long, over and over and over again. It was like smoking a cigarette, you know, like that hit of nicotine. It was the same way with anger. So now I'm trying to seek emotional sobriety to be more effective for God and the people about me. So I don't like excitement. I want to be calm and peaceful. It's pretty amazing. The last prayer, that's 11 of them. The last one is on page 164. And a lot of people miss this one. And it says, on page 164, God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. And here it is. Ask him in your morning meditation, there's the prayer and the meditation, what you can do each day for the man who's still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. It's a conditional statement. My own house has to be in order before I go try to help the next man. Otherwise, I'm just going to share my disease with him. But if I'm centered in prayer and meditation and I'm connected to God, then when I'm on the phone with him, I can share some of the spirit that's within me, and he'll hear the voice of God through me. I become a channel, you know. Otherwise, it's really easy as alcoholic to start telling people how to live their lives, and that's not the place I want to be. I want to be humble with my life. So that's the 12 daily prayers and meditations in a nutshell, and I went through them pretty fast. I hope I did all right on time. Yeah, I got a couple minutes. Like I said, this is the most important thing in my life today. It's because I've changed more by doing these 12 daily prayers and meditations. And I do something called Steel on Steel, which is an accountability meeting. And in Steel on Steel, we meet every Sunday morning at 7:30 in the morning. We go through a series of questions. And some of the questions are like, are you talking to 6 alcoholics a day to stay in the middle of the herd? Because our disease is a disease of isolation. It wants to get me away by myself where it can bushwhack me. Do I have a sponsor? If so, who is it? What step are we working on? And what's my completion date? Am I doing the 12 daily prayers? Is one of the questions in our Steel on Steel group. Every single day, we challenge each other on that. Am I doing the 12 questions and cleaning up all discrepancies? It doesn't do me any good if I go through and say, yes, I was resentful, I was dishonest, and I go through my day. If I don't clean that stuff up, by cleaning it up, you're using your ego against yourself. My ego doesn't like to go make amends to somebody when I've hurt their feelings. But trust me, you have to keep going and make amends. Before you know it, your ego will stop doing whatever behavior it is that's forcing you to go make amends because it doesn't like to look bad and humble. You know? So use whatever tool you can to keep you from getting off the spiritual beam. Right on down through the line. One of the questions that we ask in Steel on Steel is, how are my relationships? And that includes my relationship with myself. Am I overeating? Am I working out? Am I destroying the temple that God gave me? Am I smoking or doing some other negative behavior that I know is hurting me, yet I'm rationalizing it? And how am I supposed to be walking a spiritual path when I'm actively hurting myself in a certain way? And in there, because it's a men's meeting, we added in the question, porn. You know, that's part of my relationship. If I'm acting out in porn, I'm cheating on my relationship with my spouse. If I'm in a committed relationship, you know, all kinds of negative things can come through that. But it comes from the practice of doing this is partly why Steel on Steel was developed, to hold me accountable to doing these basic principle practices that Bill Wilson gave us. There's 12 of these daily prayers. If I'm not doing those, my personal experience is I'm not working the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Because it doesn't give me. He uses words like must, right? Vital. If it's something I must do, that's non-negotiable. It says every day. To me, that's non-negotiable. I got to do it every day. And one of the things that has truly helped me is I don't leave my house or the hotel or wherever I happen to be until I've done this work in the morning. I have to put on my spiritual armor. Otherwise, I'm a walking dead man. If I'm not plugged into God, the analogy I like to use is a vacuum cleaner. Anybody that's ever vacuumed in their life, they know, you know the instant. When you go around the corner and you get to the end of the cord and you go just that one little swipe a little too far and it unplugs the vacuum cleaner, instantly you know that the power has been cut off from that vacuum because it gets quiet. Why can't I be the same way in my day? I get up in the morning, I plug in to that source of power. I know absolutely categorically I'm connected to God. And very often, by 10 or 11 o'clock in my day, all of a sudden I wake up to the fact that I'm disconnected from God. Why didn't I notice it the same way I notice a vacuum cleaner unplugging? Why? What happened? Why? And my good friend Mark Houston used to always say, it's like we're going through life asleep thinking we're awake. You know, you're going through your life and you're just on autopilot and you're behaving the same way you've always behaved. You're acting out. You're doing your same character defects. And all of a sudden you kind of come to and you look back behind you and you see that you've been the tornado and there's all this wreckage in your path. And now you got to go clean it up. Well, the way to prevent that is by creating visions of the correct way to behave. For me, it's taken me years to develop these different visions that I have, and what does it look like? But it's been well worth the time and the effort. It's paid off in spades. And, you know, I can still be a horse's backside. You know, I can be a total idiot at times if I get off the spiritual beam. But I venture to say that I'm more often than not, I'm spiritually centered today. It's an unusual occurrence for me to get out of whack now because I've been doing this discipline so long, and I look at it as the next spiritual level. One of the fallacies that I had when I brought into Alcoholics Anonymous was I thought that once I did the 12 steps, I could coast. And categorically, it's the absolute lie that we tell ourselves. The longer I'm sober, the more I have to do. because we're in the grip of a progressive illness. It says over any considerable period, it gets worse, never better. So my disease is getting worse every single day. I have to offset it with my spirituality. So I have to do more and more work spiritually to keep my disease in check. If I don't, my disease will get so big that I run the dangers of relapse. The tool that I have, it's actually 12 tools in my toolbox that I sharpen them up every single day. I load up my quiver full of positive arrows for how to change my behavior. And on a good day, we read it at every meeting. On chapter 5, we stood at the turning point. Most people think that's when I come into AA. I view the turning point as happening 10,000 times a day. I can choose Dave's will or God's will. Which arrow am I going to shoot? Am I going to shoot the old arrow, the old tape of how Dave normally would behave, or am I going to try this new option? And if you don't give your brain another option, another opportunity, you're not going to react differently. You actually have to create a vision of what does it look like to do the correct behavior, and then only then do you stand a chance of actually doing the correct behavior. So with that, I'd like to thank you guys for the opportunity to share with you guys tonight. I hope what I shared makes sense. And I sent this handout of these 12 prayers and how I work them to Karen already. On the sheet, there's also a MediaFire link to it. I did a weekend talk out in Monterey, California on this specific subject. I also included the forgiveness prayer. So if you've never heard of talk about the forgiveness prayer, if you listen to that talk, you'll get the 12 daily prayers, meditations, visions, and the forgiveness prayer, which happens between column 3 and column 4 of your resentment inventory. Thanks for letting me share, and I'm going to shut up and drink coffee and answer anybody's questions that's got a question.
Dave, thank you so much. I hope everyone enjoyed this as much as I did. This was amazing. And if anybody wants the handout, I can email it to you directly. If you email us at livingthe12, that's the word 12, at gmail.com, I'd be happy to send it to anybody. Just put in your thing 12 and 12, and I'll know exactly what you want. And
when I have thousands of pages of stuff like this that I've written, and if you want me to send you anything on any of the steps, my email address is aadave1@aol.com. It's aadave1@aol.com, and I'll send you whatever you want.
And he answers all his emails. He does. So, would anybody like to share something or ask a question? Please speak up. Don't be shy or have a comment.
Are they all unmuted?
You know what? No, if I unmute them all at once. Jen, do any of your folks have anything they'd like to share? Or yourself?
I think Lucky has a question for Dave.
Sure. Okay. Hey, Lucky, how you doing?
Hey, hi, Dave. I lost track after number 8. I got lots of the pages. The number of the prayers stopped after 8 and went right to 12.
Oh, well, if you get the sheet, I'll send you the sheet. They're all numbered in the pages and the paragraphs.
Okay, great. That'll work. Thanks.
Yeah, I got kind of excited and stopped counting the numbers as I just started going through them.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'll show on the handout. Here, look at that.
That's why the handout was so helpful, because you could follow along. Would anyone else like to share something or say something? Have a question or just a comment? Carolyn, you want to share something?
Hi, I'm Carolyn.
Hey, Carolyn.
Sorry, I'm a little crazy tonight. I have Zach and the dog, so. But I just wanted to say, again, thank you so much. I don't know if I shared this last time that you were on, Dave, but Karen had sent me in my email when I was maybe, I don't know, I'm not even sure how sober I was, but I know I was living in my apartment by myself and not very sober, and she had said to me, listen to this CD on Dave Fredrickson on the 12 prayers and meditations, and I think it sat in my email for quite a while. And I was practicing this discipline of when I didn't have any plans, I would just come home to my apartment. And that was really scary back then because was afraid to be alone. You know, I always had to have something going on. So I started practicing, you know, I'd go to a meeting and go home. Or I'd go see my sponsor, I'd go home instead of making further plans. And one day I woke up and I didn't have any plans. And I started to go a little crazy. And I started asking God for help. And he told me to go listen to the 12 prayers and meditations. And I have to tell you that that day changed my life and changed the direction of my recovery. You know, I now use this not only for myself, but I use it with my sponsees, and I share this work that you put together with them because it's so important, I think. And it's like night and day, right? How does your recovery look? It's based for me on my 10 and 11 and 12. And if I'm, you know, having trouble, it's because I'm spiritually unfit in that moment. And I can make that decision to get on my knees and change my day anytime I want, you know.
Amen.
So it's been hugely helpful, and I just want to say thank you.
You're very welcome. Very, very welcome. I see Mike Stump is on. Mike, you've been practicing the 12 and 12. You got any experience with it?
You're up. Oh,
Oh, you got to unmute yourself, sir.
There you go.
There you
Not
go.
better.
Much better.
Well, let's see. I started working with you about 16 years ago, I guess. And so I've heard some of your stories before. You need to get new ones.
They're all the same stories, my friend.
I would agree wholeheartedly with everything Dave said. It's probably the most difficult thing I have to do when I'm working with a guy is to teach him about vision. Yeah, he wants to pray. That's an easy one. Prayer he struggles with, or I'm sorry, meditation he struggles with. But vision, to think that he could have a purpose for his life in this world and that God could give that to him is something beyond what seems most people are capable of understanding. And certainly for me, if I'm not praying and meditating, I'm not connected to that vision, I'm not connected to the vision, I have no reason for existence, it doesn't seem like. So great stuff, Dave. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you, brother. Love you, man. Karen, I can't hear you. There you go.
okay. Sarah, I'm going to unmute you because I want to hear your beautiful voice. There you go.
Can you hear me, Karen?
Yes.
Okay, hi guys.
Hi.
Dave, thank you so very much for sharing. That was absolutely incredible and awesome. I totally identify with what you were talking about. And I've been on the path for a while, but I didn't understand why I would get crazy in a nanosecond. I mean, I was really beginning to feel like I must have something else other than alcoholism. But the truth was, I just had a very aggressive ego. So I've been incorporating a lot of your practices, but I especially had a keen ear for what you were talking about with the vision. I have actually been working with vision, but not to the extent that you've been describing. And I'm just really grateful that you've been on this path for a while, that you've had this experience to share with us, because I can really hear it in my soul. I got to do it because I can't take the impact of me on me without the discipline. So it was just really awesome to hear you, and I thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
You know, I get people that are single sometimes that say they don't have any family. So how do they do prayer number one? And I tell them, whoever you see on a daily basis, if you go to work and there's this person in 2 cubicles over that always gets underneath your skin and they're always rubbing you the wrong way, try prayer number one on that. Patience, tolerance, kindness, and love towards that person. What is it going to look like? Or when I go to work, I have no idea who I'm going to be working with. I show up to go fly an airplane. I don't know who the crew is going to be. I just show up. You know, there'll be a captain and there'll be 2 other co-pilots, and we're going to be going to China together. But I do the prayer meditation. What is it going to look like for me to be patient, tolerant, kind, and loving towards whoever I'm going to be working with? Because, you know, sometimes people are having a bad day. If you've ever seen a ticket agent or a gate agent, you know, at an airline, they can be really rude sometimes, you know, and I can respond in kind, or if I've done this prayer for whoever I run into for the day, I have a chance of acting normally and spiritually whole.
That was awesome. Maria, would you like to share something, honey?
Yes. Hi, I'm Maria. Thank you so much, Dave. That was just so powerful, and I've just never heard anything about vision. I'm just like so blown away, and I'm so glad that I have your handout and I'll have your recording. And it's just, I just went through the BBA and saw that I really need and started doing 10 and 11. But this is like, I feel like this is like on another realm. You know, I'm just very, very grateful that I was on this call, that, you know, for your service and for your share, and for your love for this process, and for God, for seeking. I mean, it's so obvious just how much you love, you know, God and this process, and I'm just looking forward to a new experience, a new journey, and to have, you know, that emotional balance. And you just gave me so much hope. Thank you so much, Dave.
Oh, I'm so glad. I really am. That's wonderful. You know, the vision is so critical because the big book talks about two different fellowships, and most people don't realize there's two fellowships in AA. There's the fellowship of the Spirit, and there's the Spirit of the fellowship. When we first come into AA, we're the first time we're meeting people that really do understand, because that's kind of our battle cry when we're out there active. It's like, you just don't understand. I'm different. You know, that's our standard way of believing. We come to the meetings and we fall into that initial fellowship, but the entry into the fellowship of the Spirit comes from the vision. You know, and it says plain as day, every day. I mean, so it's something I got to do every day. We must carry the vision of God's will into all our activities. And when you can start to do that, then you enter into the fellowship of the Spirit. When you can look at other people at a meeting and they have the sparkly eyes, and you immediately connect with them at a new level, because you're both in that realm of the spiritual realm, because you're taking it to the next level spiritually. You're not just staying sober. You're actually making the world a better place, because you're in it and you're sober.
Who else would like to share something? If you're on the phone, just hit *6. Or anyone else, just unmute yourselves. Ronnie, you want to share something? Okay.
Carter, you out there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah.
You've practiced this for a little bit.
Yeah, right. Well, it's true. It's like, if I don't do this, I dearly pay for it in my own spirit's conditioning. Like, things start to go awry, and in particular, like on page 86, like the 12 questions, and in that very end, it's like it's asking for those corrective measures. Like, we ask God to help correct us, and it's a way of it's another way of God helping us keep us in check from our own delusion. You know, and like a few months ago, I was all spiritually awry and not being sober spiritually at all. And it's a direct result of contingent on like the lack of doing this, and then of really taking this into meditation and vision and seeing where I'm wrong, or in addition to staying accountable with other guys. And I had a sponsee who recently went out, and he was like, yeah, but you know, and I just talked to him on the phone, and we were talking about like I asked the questions, like, where do you think his relapse starts? Like, I don't know, man. I was doing the whole program. I was like, you were doing the whole program? I was like, yeah, you know, I was doing stuff, or I was like, he was like, there's all this stress in my life, and I was like, well, were you doing 10, 11? And you know, like you said, you were like, well, no, I mean, I don't even, and there's and it's a daily reprieve. It's like if we can talk about it, but if we're not actually applying it into our daily life, we're screwed. And it makes and so it's radically like before I did work through the book and had experiences, but for years in the program. But then once I actually started doing this, once I was introduced to this, I thought I was doing the program before. But then, then I realized how much of it I was not actually doing, and it's added a whole new level to my own sobriety. But the trick is doing it every day and throughout the day. Otherwise, the mind will take over. We'll be delusional. The pain will come up, and we'll drink again. So,
amen.
Or we'll do whatever. So there, that.
Thanks, Carter.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Carter. You said something really, a lot of people say this often, is that we named our group, our group conscious, we named it Living the 12 because this is about living 12 steps. This isn't about doing anything. This is about living in a new way. And this is, if you think about this, step 1 is in the middle, okay? All the other steps go around it because everything leads back to the unmanageability of step 1 if we don't live them all. And I learned that from Dave, from some of his earlier steps. He said they go around us in a circle. They're not in a straight line. And so I feel like everything leads back to the unmanageability in step 1 if I don't live this way, because that's what I can't live with. That's what will lead me to what's going to kill me.
Yep.
So it's about living. It's about living and living through and seeing through God's eyes. You know what I mean? And seeing how God sees things. And that's when Dave says, what's it going to look like? What is God seeing? Because that's what I want to see. Because, man, what I'm seeing, I don't like a lot. So it's like, yeah. I'll come home and it'll be like, well, who pissed in your cornflakes this morning? Because you are not a happy person. And it's just that intolerance. Yeah, here you go. Not serving me at all. And that's when I have to, okay, God, what are you seeing? Because I don't get it right now. And that's what I love about the 11-step pause. Hit the button. It's a big red button. and then I can get back to God's, because the vision, Dave, it's God's vision. I need to see how God sees. I need God's lenses on.
Absolutely. That's huge. And that's if your first foray into vision work, that's a question you can always ask yourself, is say, okay, if God was with me when I was doing whatever the negative action was, what would God have wanted me to do differently? How would he wanted me to be patient, loving, tolerant, kind? What would that have looked like if it was God doing it instead of me? What would his reaction have been to that exact same scenario? And then try that. That's a way of finding out a quick vision of doing something differently. Because a lot of times we scratch in our head and we're going, I don't know what God would want from me. And we'll just say, well, or pick the most spiritual person. Say, if my sponsor had done that exact same behavior, what would my sponsor have done? If he knew I was watching him, how would he have reacted in that situation? That's a way to figure out a way to change your behavior. It's particularly critical if you're in a relationship. When my wife is getting underneath my skin, or and that's one of the watchwords when I'm watching. Anytime that my wife is, and I'm thinking to myself, I wish she'd just shut up, or what is she talking about? Why is she even, why is her mouth moving? It's not making any sense. Then I immediately can pause right there and go, wait a minute, you're off the beam, Dave. You've disconnected from God. And I have to get a different, and I'll say a prayer. I'll say, God, show me how to see my wife the way that you see her. And man, if that'll give you a vision in a nanosecond of how it'll make you a better partner to your spouse.
Well, yeah, because what God wants is definitely not what I want right now, and I just have to remember that.
Absolutely.
It never is. If you want to know what God wants, it's the exact opposite of what you want in that moment.
Right, and that's because the big book says that a problem centers in our mind, right? And that's where our ego is in our mind. God resides in our innermost self, in our heart. So I always play on words, and I say you got to be out of your mind to find God. You can't be up here. If I'm up here and I'm thinking, well, I'm justifying why she's wrong or whatever, or why my boss is wrong and why what's going on. I need to get down into my heart and connect to God in my heart. and then I have a chance at behaving and acting the correct way when I become a channel through my heart. I don't ever become a channel through my head. The only thing that comes out is my disease when I'm a channel through my head. That's just pure ego.
That's awesome. Would anybody else like to share anything before we close tonight? Anybody? All open. Just unmute with *6, or any of you that are on the screen have a question or just want to say thanks. Anything.
Hi, Karen. This is Jen Bonder. Thanks for doing this. It's been a lot of fun. Dave, good to see you, man.
Jen, it's great to see you, and I'm so glad you got a group of women. She's like a trooper. She helps more women, and whenever a woman sends me an email, because I don't work with women anymore, I kick them over to Jen. She's getting people all over the world.
Yeah, that's amazing. Jen, I'd like to call on you and ask you to share for us sometime. Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
If those of you don't know Jen and I did a workshop where we actually started a meeting, and we met for a year and a half. And we recorded every session. We went through the big book, and we went through the 12 steps, the 12 traditions, 12 concepts, 6 warranties. It's called Big Book Archaeology. I wrote a 50-page study guide for the 12 steps and like a 35-page guide for the 12 traditions and 12 concepts. And, that's how much I respect Jen. She's a phenomenal resource particularly for you ladies.
Yes.
I'm telling you.
It was awesome. I highly recommend everybody listening to that, because it was one of the best things I ever heard. It really helped me a great deal.
I've got it on MediaFire on my server, and if you send me an email, I'll send you the link, and you'll get all the study guides and PDFs and everything that comes with it.
I will definitely do that, Dave.
Yeah.
Jolie, would you like to say Jolie's iPad? There you are.
Hi, how are you? Hi, everybody. I'm Pollock. My name is Jolie Cake. Tuning in for the first time at your meeting from Vero Beach, Florida, and just wanted to say thank you very much. Say thank you to Dave, and thank you, Karen, for hosting, and thank you to Jen for working with the women. Dave, I'm hosting a study at my house where a few of us here in Vero Beach are using that workshop that you and recorded together.
Mm-hmm.
And we meet every other Thursday, and we're listening to the recording together. And that kind of transpired because I followed along with it by myself last year. Carter actually shared it with me, and it is truly an amazing workshop, and I've just gotten so much from it. And I just wanted to say thank you at this point. I'd love to tune into this meeting again. I was really grateful to be here this evening, and that's it. Thanks.
Well, we're here every Tuesday, and you are welcome to join us anytime and share with us. We do a lot of different things. We just love to come on and hear this work in the book. So thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
Could you give us the emails to get the worksheets you were describing earlier? Living the 12 at something?
At gmail.com. And who are you? What's your name?
My name's Daryl. I'm an addict.
Hey, Daryl. Where are you from?
Hi. I'm in Kennewick, Washington.
Oh, how cool. Well, Daryl, you can also email me at aadave1@aol.com, and I'll send you the links.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you for being with us.
Hey, Karen.
Thank you.
How are you?
Hi, honey.
Hi. I did want to, this is a couple of things really struck me. This is the first I've really heard of this vision thing. So I think that's going to be really interesting to study on this sheet that I got in my email and see what I make of that. And the morning program rather than this evening program. I always wondered about that and doing that at night. But I would be very interested in hearing Dave's, is it a CD, Dave?
The Big Book Archaeology is like 25 CDs. Yeah, but it's an MP3. You can download it onto your phone. You can listen to it online. You can burn it onto CD. You can do whatever you want with it.
Oh, that would be really good. Yeah, I'd like to hear that. I don't know about the group, but that would be
Sure, it's the best.
yeah. Well, yeah. Karen, you probably have access to his side.
Sure do.
Well, I think it's in this little handout here too.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dave. I appreciate your talking with us tonight. It was very interesting.
Glad to be of service.
Okay. Well, peeps, I think we'll
I have a question.
Oh, sure.
Hi. My name is Shalom from Brooklyn, New York.
Hey, Shalom, how you doing?
I'm good, Dave. Thank you for speaking. I had to run in and run out. I couldn't hear the whole thing. My question is like this. I just started meditating today, so this is a whole new thing for me. I'm very not good at it. But I know that I don't know nothing, but I think that God wants me to be there for my wife.
He does.
Okay, so if my wife wants something and I'm not getting it, so I get angry at God. Because if God wants me to show tolerance, love, and kindness towards my wife, and my wife wants something and I'm not getting it, then why shouldn't I be angry at God?
Because God provides what you need, not what you want. And your job is to love your wife. And the two of you are supposed to grow together to become one flesh. And God is the other half of the relationship. So you bring 25% to the relationship, she brings 25% to the relationship, the two of you become one, and God is the other 50% of the relationship. And so you got to let God be God. He's going to provide everything you need. You haven't missed a meal, you got a roof over your head, you got $20 in your pocket, you don't have a problem. You know, your needs have been met. Your job is then to be a channel of God's love and love your wife and meet her emotional needs. That's what your job is to be there and listen to her, and because she is God's gift to you. There's no other man on the planet that can love your wife in physical form except you. Your job is to love her unconditionally and be her best friend. Does that make sense?
So basically you're saying that my job is not to gift her, it's more to validate her and sympathize with her.
Absolutely.
Not to solutionize it for her.
That's correct. Because I'm sure she's a smart woman. If she needs something, God will provide it. But if she wants something, the two of you can put your heads together and figure out how to get it. You know, and if it's God's will, it'll come to pass. If it's not God's will, there's nothing you can do about it. It's never going to happen.
Okay, I appreciate that. I thank you. I have another question. The question is, I drive a lot, and I cannot stand traffic, and I cannot stand when people don't drive the way I want them to drive. Now,
welcome to the club.
My question is that I was meditating today, and I shut my phone off. I meditated in my car, and then I got onto the road, and I was connected, and then someone cut me off, and I lost it. So now, how do I get it back?
Seek God again. Sometimes you have to seek him on a 5-mile trip. You might have to seek him 20 times. You just keep saying, hey, God, I'm losing it here. I need you. Come be with me.
Isn't that like an obsession, talking to God the whole day?
No, absolutely not. It's not an obsession, because the more you practice it, the more you'll realize he's with you all the time, and you won't have those emotional spikes. You'll get to the point where somebody will cut you off, and you'll go, hey, God, please bless whoever that person is. They obviously need to get there quicker than me.
Hey, this is Carter. Sorry to interrupt, but Shalom, I'm near Brooklyn right now. Don't live in Brooklyn, but I'm here for like a week and a month, and I have a lot of this stuff. If you want to, I shot you a personal message if you want to get back to me.
Okay, fine.
If you want to meet up at a meeting or something.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dave. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure. God bless you.
God bless.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. This has been a wonderful time tonight. I hope you've all gotten as much out of it as I have. I sure have. So we thank you all for participating in tonight's gathering. And thank you for staying on and asking questions. And so if you're interested in joining our group or being on our mailing list, we are Living the 12. That's the word 12 at gmail.com. We also have a private Facebook group called Living the 12, and if you request to join, we'll definitely put you on there. So we're going to close with, we like to read the last 2 paragraphs of A Vision for You, and then we Serenity Prayer, the new version. So our book is meant to be suggestive only, as we know only a morning meditation what you can do for each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit. And you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. So let's share the we version of the Serenity Prayer as we close. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Your will, not ours, be done.
Amen.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Karen.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you, everyone. And my personal email is kmacleg, KMACLEG @gmail.com. If anybody wants to stay connected. Dave, thank you again so much for giving of your time.
Happy to do it. Yeah.
It's been really wonderful to have you with us. And Jen, it was so awesome to meet you. I've been like, this was like a dream. I was like, Jen's on, oh my God. Honestly, you know, when you
fill me up, I think.
recordings and go through this, it gets very personal.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
These are your BFFs.
Yep.
So I hope you'll share with us again sometime, and we really look forward to having Jen join us sometime. Jen, what's your phone number?
404-909-9852.
Okay. Very good. We will be in touch. I'm looking forward to having you share with us. Like the two of you together was so powerful to listen to on your Big Book Archaeology. And this is so funny because I've been saying lately to people new in the work and some people who are, you know, maybe stymied a little bit that, you know, we are the great reality deep within is blocked by a lot of boulders and bullshit. And this is an archaeological dig. It's an excavation of my soul. I can't get to it. I can't even feel it because of all the boulders and all the garbage and nonsense. So
awesome.
When you two called it Big Book Archaeology, I'm like, that's the stuff. Because isn't it an archaeological dig?
It is.
It is. Also, just in case you're keeping track, there were 9 people here at my house listening.
That's awesome. We usually have multiple people. In the rooms. And it's so funny because I know eventually I would love to have a workshop with people from all over the place, groups of people together, because it's really so needed. The globalization, there are still dark corners of our country, never mind anywhere else.
Right.
There's dark corners, and you know, I do this like this because, I mean, I do this work. I work with people from all over the country and even some from abroad because because I want to work with people who really want it too. You know what I mean? Like, you want to do this? Because this is about having something to transmit, because what is our job? Is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service.
Yeah, I got a sponsee that just set a new standard though. I've been working with him for a couple of years. He lives in London, and he just flew to the United States so that I could hear his 5th step. So that's going to any length. Yeah.
You know, and that's it's about, you know, freedom isn't free. There's some work involved.
Amen.
You know?
I was Fonzie in Paris, and I'm willing to go to Paris to hear her 5th step.
I'm willing to go with you if you need help.
Yeah.
Right? I'm right there with you. You know, we have this technology makes it so wonderful. I love I was taking a class out of Sedona, Arizona, and this was the medium that they used.
Sure.
And so at the time, like, the East Coast was being bombarded by people who wanted to go through the book like the way Dan Sherman had done it in Big Book Awakening. And so, and I've used that since I got sober. And so I said, I let them, send people to me. And it just got to be where, multiple people, you want to be in a room together. This is so awesome. And the audio is just so much better.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna go so we can wrap up our little meeting here. You guys have a
See you,
great
Jen.
God bless you. God bless you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Absolutely. Bye.